Meanwhile, Russia has just taken its alliance with the Islamic Republic of Iran into the orbit with satellite launches. On Sunday, in fact, Russia sent 3 Iranian communication satellites into orbit, the second such launch since July. A Russian rocket sent the satellites to circle the Earth on a 500-kilometer orbit from the launch pad in eastern Russia. The 3 satellites, in fact, weighing 150 kilograms, the heaviest satellite that Iran has ever deployed into orbit. One of these satellites there. In fact, Kowsar weighs 35 kilograms. The weight of Zafar-2 is not clear. The satellites feature up to 3-meter resolution images applicable in the management of water resources, agriculture, the environment. Their lifespan is up to 5 years, but this is not new. Russia occasionally sends Iran satellites into orbit due to its strong ties with the country. In fact, earlier in July, a Russian rocket sent Iranian communication satellite called heightened into orbit. Russia signed a strategic partnership treaty with Iran in January and had also strongly condemned the Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iran that came during the 12-day air war in June this year, which killed nearly 1,100 Iranians reportedly. The United States has said that Iran's satellite launches defy a UN Security Council resolution and called on Tehran to undertake no activity involving ballistic missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons. But it's also important to note here that the UN sanctions related to Iran's ballistic missile program expired in 2023. The Iran-Russia satellite came hours ahead of the Israeli Prime Minister's visit to Washington, where he held talks with Donald Trump at the president's resort in Florida. And as Washington pushes to complete the first phase of the Gaza truce, Israel is also escalating attacks in the occupied West Bank, Lebanon, Syria. As the Israeli officials suggest that another war with Iran is possible, all eyes now will be on what comes out from that meeting. But if there were any doubts, the launch also sends out a clear signal. Iran is making it known that it's not isolated and that it has powerful partners that it can rely on. Is the United Kingdom heading towards a mass casualty terror attack on the scale of 9/11? Speaking to a British tabloid, The Sun, a former Al-Qaeda member who later became a spy for Britain's intelligence service says that the UK likely hosts hundreds of sleeper agents prepared to, quote-unquote, unleash devastation whenever called upon, further claiming that the question is no longer if such an attack happens, rather it's about when. September 11, 9/11, the terrorist attack that took place in the United States on September 11, 2001. In fact, extremism has been in focus both within the UK and globally. Recently, the British government classifying the current national terrorism threat level as substantial, a threat level that, as per the British government, means an attack is likely. And while the British investigators last week convicted 2 men of planning an Islamic State-inspired gun attack targeting Jewish locations across Greater Manchester, what the investigators believe could have been one of the most devastating terror attacks ever carried out in Britain. Similar to the former MI6 spy's warning, the director of MI5 has also recently warned that the Al-Qaeda and Islamic State are becoming more ambitious, taking advantage of instability globally to gain firmer foothold. There have been several ISIS-linked incidents across the world. Just this month in Sydney, remember, gunmen opened fire during a Hanukkah celebration, killing at least 15 people, injuring more than 40. While in Syria, an ISIS gunman ambushed U.S. personnel, killing 2 American soldiers and an American civilian interpreter, and injuring several more. U.S. forces killed the attacker and launched large-scale retaliatory strikes against ISIS. The mask has slipped. What Pakistan denied for weeks, what its generals tried to bury under hollow claims of victory, now being admitted out in the open, publicly, and at the very top. India's decisive military response after the Pahalgam terror attack did not just hit terror infrastructure, it shook the very core of Pakistan's power establishment. And now the Pakistan president has revealed that when India launched Operation Sindoor, Pakistan's top leadership panicked to the point where he was advised to take shelter in a bunker. Take a look.
My military secretary was there. He came to me and said, "Sir, the war has started." I had actually told him 4 days earlier that a war was going to happen, but he came to me and said, "Sir, let's go to the bunkers."
This was, of course, not political rhetoric. This was fear inside Pakistan's highest offices as the Indian armed forces carried out precision strikes in retaliation for the cold-blooded killing of the civilians in Pahalgam. And this statement, this admission matters because for the first time, Pakistan's civilian leadership is acknowledging what India made clear from day one, that these strikes were accurate, also very symbolic. And Zardari is not alone, of course. Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has also been forced to admit the truth. In his year-end briefing, he confirmed that India targeted the Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, which is one of Pakistan's most sensitive and high-profile military installations. Not just that, he acknowledged that Indian strikes damaged military infrastructure within Pakistan. This is not India saying this. Pakistan is now finally admitting and confessing. And there's more to this. Pakistan now admits that 80 Indian drones entered its airspace over just 36 hours. Despite claims of intercepting 79 of them, Pakistan concedes that one drone pierced its air defenses and struck a high-value military target. And let's not forget the bigger picture here. In the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan's defense minister, remember, openly admitted that Pakistan has been supporting terrorism for 3 decades as a matter of state policy. The Pahalgam terror attack took place on April 22nd when Pakistan-based terrorists targeted Hindu tourists, killing 26 people after asking about their religion. And in response, on May 7, India launched precise strikes under Operation Sindoor, targeting terror infrastructure across Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And Pakistan, in retaliation, attempted attacks on Indian military bases. On May 8, 9, 10, India responded firmly to those provocations, demonstrating the readiness and the resolve of the country's armed forces. Hostilities were finally ceased following talks between the Directors General of Military Operations from the two sides on May 10, resulting in an agreement to halt military actions. However, India has always maintained that the operation is in a paused state and not fully terminated, with Prime Minister Modi having warned repeatedly that any future act of terror would be treated as an act of war. Let that sink in. Now, the narrative is also clear. India acted. India struck the terror infrastructure with precision. And Pakistan, despite its loud propaganda on global platforms, was rattled, it was exposed and forced into damage control. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.